Suddenly teaching becomes so much more effective and so much more efficient when you learn to differentiate between content areas and skill areas of learning. The other thing I want to talk about is, and it sounds a little self-promoting because unit study is what we do, but I want to talk about unit studies for just a minute because great teachers figure out, I think, that we don't have to teach every subject separately
Right.
to each child. If you get a degree in education, educators divide subject areas into two categories: vertical and horizontal areas of teaching, or sometimes we call them skill areas and content areas. So skill areas and vertical learning areas are the same thing, and those would be basically reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Hmm.
And the two characteristics of those are they're totally sequential. You can't start math with quadratic equations. You have
Right.
to start with learning your single digits. Same thing with reading. You can't start with the Gettysburg Address. You start with vowel sounds, consonants. And so they're completely sequential. And once you've mastered them, you're finished.
Hmm.
You didn't get up this morning and practice your times tables in case you had to multiply something today. You learned that when you were in fourth grade. You haven't thought about it since.
Right.
All the other subjects are the content areas or the horizontal areas of learning. And the two characteristics of those areas, and we're talking here about history, science, geography, creative writing, astronomy, architecture, nutrition, anything else you can think of besides reading, writing, and arithmetic, are the content areas. And there's two unique characteristics. Number one, you do not have to study those things sequentially. It's not essential that you have a comprehensive knowledge of the Peloponnesian Wars before you can study World War II. Sooner or later, you ought to learn something about both, but they're not sequential. And number two, you never learn all there is to learn about any of those subjects. So if you know someone who has a postgraduate work in astronomy and you say, wow, you must know everything there is to know about the solar system, the first thing he's going to tell you is, oh my gosh, the more we learn, the more we realize we haven't even scratched the surface. There's so much we don't know. So when you figure that out, you begin to teach reading, writing, and math to each child progressively, wherever they are. And even identical twins may be at different levels. And you can teach all the other subjects together as a family. And whether you've got a 17-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, you can all begin learning about the westward expansion or whatever the subject is together. Now, each has different expectations and different levels, but suddenly teaching becomes so much more effective and so much more efficient when you learn to differentiate between content areas and skill areas of learning. And the ones that are accessible by unit study are everything except reading, writing, and math. And you just saved yourself a ton of money and a ton of hours by creating your own one-room schoolhouse. And that's effectively the best way that I know to teach kids.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And that's exactly what we do for most of our subjects. I've got two girls who are almost 5 years apart, and we do a ton of our learning together. And it's great. You know, my oldest daughter grasps more of what my younger daughter grasps on a lot of things because she's older and more advanced in her thinking. But it is the best way to teach your kids. And I think moms today get so overwhelmed because they feel like they have to teach all the different subjects individually to all of their kids individually. And they're like, it can't be done. And we're like, yep, you're right. It can't be done. It's just too difficult.
If you have 5 kids, there aren't enough hours in the day and there aren't enough dollars in your checkbook to buy 5 complete sets of curriculum and teach 5 different subjects at the same time. Can't be done.